Okay, so this is episode one of our podcast. I'm going to be your host, Sapphire, and this is my co host.
Hello, I am one Uncle D. Vader.
And yeah, we're gonna be talking about the Mass Effect Trilogy and some of its music. We're not gonna do all of it, and we're only gonna do bits and pieces, but there could and probably will be spoilers to the trilogy as a whole. So if you haven't seen it or played it, most likely play it. This is your warning to not watch this. But
Yes,
for those
go
who, yes,
crawl out from underneath the rock where you have been hiding, and pick up the Legendary Edition or not, whichever one. But start with one. It's a unique game. You can carry your saves through the three games, and it matters what you do. So never forget that when you're making your choices. But we're gonna focus on the music and all the people involved in its creation.
yeah. So like he said, this is an old game, but get the Legendary Edition. They did a lot of work on it, and it just makes the whole experience for the first time better. And then if you want the other stuff, you know, I won't tell you how to spend your money, but Legendary Edition's cheap on Steam, and it's reasonably priced for what you're getting. But we're not here to talk about Legendary Edition. Let's talk about the music. So, like I said, we're only doing a few songs from each game. We're going in game order, but not chronological order. So the songs are not in order, but we'll tell you what song uh, and what game. So we're gonna start with Mass Effect, and we're gonna do a song called Vigil, which plays at the beginning of the game on the title screen, and at the end of the game, where last spoiler warning, you know. Okay, great. Spoiler warning over. You talk to the Prothean VI, and he starts yapping to you about, the Prothean extinction. This song
This is all.
plays.
This is also the title screen.
Yeah.
And pretty much this theme, when you hear this at all during any of the three, you pretty much, I mean, this is a very familiar theme. So take it in.
Yep. So we're gonna pull that up and we're gonna play it. So this is Vigil. All right. So that was Vigil. Let me go back to Discord. All right. So Uncle D Vader, if you want to give your initial thoughts, feel free.
So this piece, hmm, this theme, this is a short excerpt of it. if you really want to take it in, if you haven't played this game before, if you have, just go to the title screen for the first one. There's many sources where you can get the extended version, and there's lots of remixes. However, the cool thing, we'll kind of tackle this a little bit from a musical standpoint, is the opening chord. That's one thing that sets the tone for kind of what you're going into. It's synth, and it's very, it just holds the bottom the whole time, and then it builds on it. Go check out some longer versions. This is a very good taste, but I like for the components that they put into it. This is very early work in this franchise, produced by Jack Wall, who's done an amazing amount of work on the series. But I like it because it it sets a tone where it's curious, it's inviting, it's not heavy, it's not like an EDM theme that comes in for some other games. This is really a little bit of a thing that kind of touches your ear and says, hey, come, try this out.
Yeah. And adding on to that, it gives a more alien kind of feeling, like you're not on Earth. You're not when you listen to this, or yeah, you're not on Earth, but you have the same like feeling, like you hear that like ethereal kind of chorus in the background while the piece is playing, and it's got that like syntheticness to it, and it does give off the vibe or the feeling that mistakes were made, but you can still hear how peaceful it is. Like the calm before storm, or the calm after the storm, or the
Yep.
brief intermission.
And when you go through the whole thing, the whole idea, and I don't know if this is the composer's idea, but it's calming, it's the middle, but it's always, it like sings of a little bit of hope. I like the small vocal pieces that they put in with this as well. It's kind of, don't look a little bit farther than the horizon.
Yeah, it it gives the when you meet the Prothean VI, and when you hear this piece, it goes from the like EDM kind of boss kind of music to calm and hopefulness as you're stopped and you have to go talk to this digital being, and this digital being literally just drops the lore dump on you, but you're hearing
Yeah,
this in the background and you're understanding, wow, this is like this piece makes you feel sad when you're talking to this VI. It makes you actually feel bad for what happened to these guys.
yeah. This is the moment, the pivotal moment where you feel the weight of the game. The actual intention of it. So this is a fantastic piece of music to really. It starts to tie things together. Not too many spoilers, but this is the moment where you realize, oh, okay, this this is what I got to do.
Yeah, it just makes you feel hopeful, and that the end doesn't have to be now. You can fight for freedom in the entire galaxy that of which you are a part of. So, any last thoughts? Then we can move on to the next piece, which I believe is where is it? Next piece,
The Citadel.
the Citadel. Okay, thank you.
Yep, this will be a little bit of a spoiler. We talk about hope and your mission, the whole intention of being in the galaxy and what you're supposed to do. The Citadel is a very large common space for a particular spot in the galaxy. There's others, but this one is, I don't even know if I want to call it like the good guys, but this is definitely where, we'll give peace a chance kind of folks meet and talk. So you spend some time here. You learn a lot about Mass Effect has a very large codex to really learn about politics and social items and weapons and oh my gosh, it's worth the read. They put a lot of time into it. But the Citadel is something that you kind of hear in the background as you go through the game.
And to add on to that context, it it's just a piece that you know, like you can recognize if you've played this game, you'll be like, oh, that's a you know, it's that thing you can put on in the background and forget it's there. Vigil is also one of those pieces, but this one is the one you hear the most because you're at the Citadel the most. And the Citadel is not a place per se, it is a place, but it's a space station. And it is huge. It is the biggest place in all three games, except for probably Mass Effect 3, is probably the exception. But every other game, you do go to the Citadel, it is big, it is huge, and you know you've
It's like
stepped on to something like Alien, you know?
yeah, imagine if you've ever been to like New York City,
Yeah,
but
it's,
it's
yeah,
it's sliced up into five pieces, but it's got still about 15 million beings living on it. But a very cool place.
yeah. So this will be the Citadel now. Alright, so there was the Citadel. Like I said, initial thoughts, again from Mass Effect 1.
Fa- Fantastic piece of music. To be specific, the Citadel. This is the first time in the game where you're going back after your initial mission and information and whatnot, kind of the game setup, and you're coming through like nebula clouds. And this is the first time you actually get to see the thing. So this is the whole process of the creators getting you in and introducing something where the music I think plays a very large part because this thing is epically huge, and it's integral to this entire story. So that'll be one of those things where when you do the introduction, kind of a special side note, the Citadel has a lot of other pieces of music. It even has when you're riding around and doing things, the audio content in the Citadels are massive because you can hear newsreels. You get elevator music. That's Muzak, M-U-Z, yeah, A-K. So this is a great setup to just a fantastic space in the games.
Yeah. And like he said, you don't initially see it, but if you have a legendary edition, you know the engine can just do so much more. So in legendary edition, you can see it behind the nebula, but you can't really see it fully until you go through the clouds and you see it. But you can kind of see it when you're behind the clouds. and you can already tell this thing is huge just by the lights alone. This thing lights up like a Christmas tree. You cannot miss it from however far away you want to be. You can see this thing for a long span. This thing is, again, New York City, separated into five little arms. Not little arms, I should say. They're giant arms, but retrospectively, they're not the size of planets here, but they're big, you know?
Oh yeah, yep,
Yeah.
massive. This a side note. This was a very interesting piece in the behind the scenes. This is actually a product of three different composers. Jack Wall being the kind of primary, and Sam Hulick, but Richard Jacques. They all came together and they produced this one piece of music. So game music gets to be like that, where you get to add different flavors of different people. But this is definitely a great piece of music.
Yeah. And going back to that thought of this thing is huge, again, it's I can't say it enough. It is massive. And again, you're seeing it for the first time, so they have to build the intensity of you just finished a mission, one story mission, and now you have to go talk, you gotta go talk to basically the people in charge of the universe at that point.
Yep. And
So, yeah, they
as you
hit
go
you.
through it, all of the all of the stuff, all of the places you can go to, depending on where you go and who you take with you, you get a lot of unique dialogue in the different places. But the music again is this. It's one of the it's undercurrents of this particular game. All games usually have sound effects, of course, and some music, but this is one particular genre. This is why we're doing this. Where they really paid attention to where you're at, what you're doing, and the weight, gravity, mission. What you're trying to get to. There's other tracks we'll get to, but this is a fantastic example of where they paid attention to what was going on and what the game producers were trying to put out.
Yeah, and the music alone doesn't do it justice. You really have to be like you really have to play the games to know like
Yeah,
this
visuals.
is like visuals help so much with the music, but the music alone is great, but visuals with like movie soundtracks, that's why movie soundtracks use specific music because that music ties in perfectly with the video that they're showing. Music is really just auditory, but it can make you feel something if you're looking at something related to that. Like someone, a beloved character you say gets killed in action, right? They're going to play something somber, that's going to make you feel like, that you like that person, even though you never met them ever. They're just a character, but they're a character that psychologically they made you feel attached because you'll never see him again or her, you'll never see them again, you know. Just they're dead, and that music emphasizes the they're dead part, the sadness. Same thing with this. This is ominous. Then it goes into the percussion with cymbals, and it just opens up into like omniscious giant building. Like you are a speck of dirt next to like I don't know the Empire State Building. It's not a good analogy, but that's the best thing I can think about. You're small. That thing is big. Big sounds. Boom. So that's pretty much it. It just gets you invested into the game with visuals, and the music reflects those visuals.
Yep. Like any good people see movies. This is like any good thing. You've got to you get it all here.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add? Final thoughts?
No, no, we still got quite a bit of music to get through. These are just the opening things, the stuff you really become familiar with quickly. But no, let's move on and build on this.
All right. Next song was, remind me again, what was it?
Let's see here. We're gonna do. You call it the Mass Effect theme.
I
Yeah.
believe it was, yeah, here it is. Okay, so this will be the last piece for Mass Effect 1, so we can really talk about this piece as a whole. This is the first piece you hear when create your character and you're about to start your epic journey as Commander Shepard. So, as always, Uncle D. Vader, you have the floor.
The, he's absolutely correct. This is the build in to where you kind of get a feel for what's going to be coming up. This is the initial. This is where you get just enough to kind of sort of whet your appetite, kind of scenes and music. The Mass Effect, which they'll explain, relay. This is where you go up to it and you kind of get a feeling for the scale of the universe that you're going to be stepping into. Now, I want to draw special attention to right in the middle. I don't know what kind of sound it is. Mm, there's some sort of synth sound, but that is one thing you'll hear in a lot of pieces of music. It's kind of one of those ghost things that gets put in the background. Um, one of them being the galaxy map, which you spend a lot of time in. It's a big place, as it turns out. But
Very much so, yeah.
the marrying of these two, and this being uh, it's got a lot of action in it. This is an action game, but it's an immersive. You get to make choices and stuff. But the other thing they uh, they start with the music, and then you get what I call the heroic sounds of like French horns, brass too. But they take the low end in, and then they add the snare at the top, so you sort of get the military ambiance of we're on our way, we're going to do something, and this is
Yeah.
serious business kind of a thing.
And this is the people you're with. These are humans. They are people from Earth. They are the Navy, but they're in space. You're on military ship. You're gonna do a military mission, but it's like the most top secret covert mission. But right now, you're easing into the fact that you are overlooking Earth and you're about to leave Earth and jump essentially halfway across the galaxy to do this mission. The super important mission that could shape everybody's lives in the whole galaxy, not just yours.
Yeah, and it's good. Something I need to add too, and this just hopefully whets your appetite more to try the game out. Within the first 15 minutes, you also get comic relief because right after this, you get the seriousness. You go do your thing. You jump across the galaxy. There's a plethora of great voice actors, but here you get your first real good comic relief too. You sort of get set up with a couple crew members that are with you for a very long time, and they do crack jokes and kind of you get to you get the feeling of camaraderie on the ship as well. So if you haven't played it, again, take your time going through the ship because there's so much that goes on. The music really does help carry the story through. So take your time, enjoy it.
Yeah, going back to the crew, yeah, you definitely meet up with the helmsman Joker, is what he's called in game, but Jeff Moreau, everyone just calls him the Joker. He's Joker. He's funny. He's funny. But yeah, he's great character, and he's like the first one you have dialogue with. Then you can walk around the upper deck of the ship where you're kind of funneled into one room. But as you're funneled into that room, you can overhear conversations and you can talk to other crewmen and crewwomen, but crew people. You can talk to other crew members on your way that you're being funneled into this location. And it's not a big ship. Eventually, you'll go to where you're supposed to. There's like 3 rooms that you can go into in this part of the game, so you can't exactly get lost. But later, when you unlock the entire ship, then you learn, oh, the big ship. But you're thrown onto one deck, and there's like 3 rooms, so you can't really go anywhere. But you get to talk to people and learn about where you're going a little bit. You learn about what's going on a little bit, and to the music, it gives the oh my gosh, just testosterone levels just went up.
And they take this theme and they also ramp it up a few different times during the game. You hear very similar music, but it's they add epic runs of strings and brass and the synth when the game you really have those crucial moments in the game. There's still little bits. They still add the themes that you hear at the beginning of the game. So it's a great building experience, especially when you get to the end, because then the gravitas starts to come down, but the themes are still there. So always, as you go through the music and the game, they're very much they intentionally lead you down the story, but so does the music.
Yeah, and adding on to the music, they really did a good job with the synthetic parts. You know how sometimes you can tell something is a video game soundtrack. You can still tell this is a video game soundtrack, but like subconsciously this music just makes you feel like it's right place, right time kind of music. Like the synthetic parts really add to it because the year's 2181. So, it's sci-fi, so they can use the syntheticness and get away with it because it's sci-fi game, but science fiction. But you get to know that the synthesis is used sparingly, and when it's used either as background or as a momentum into brass percussion, other instruments that you can recognize with your ear. Even if you're not a hardcore musician, you can still you can hear instruments. The synthetic doesn't drive the music, it just pushes it along. And when it's only the synthetic, it's the heartbeat. So,
Yep.
anything else you
It's
wanted to add?
just games are becoming more and more. It's more. It's not just the sound effects anymore. I'm ancient. Hashtag pre Star Wars. Okay. Um, it's not like going to the arcade and hearing sound effects, but when some of the more advanced games came along, you even got music there too. So it is definitely a part to take in for anything that you're going to spend time on and play. You know, imagine a movie without a soundtrack. If especially if it was a horror film, you'd probably have a heart attack. But the cinema experience of a soundtrack that leads you through a story like anything else. Um, I mean, even in baseball game, take me out to the ball game. I mean, there's soundtracks for stuff. They try to make anything that you go to. If it doesn't have music, it almost feels kind of sterile. So anyway,
Alone.
important piece. Great opener.
Yes. Quick thing about that is it does make you feel alone. With zero music, if you turn off music in a video game, all you hear is sound effects. And when, back in like 1990, that's really what most music was. It was sound effects. You know, there's like 16 bits you can use, and five of those bits were for music. I don't know how, ancient people watching this would be, but music has gotten better since before this, and it has gotten better since after this. But
Immensely. Yep.
yes,
Right.
this is still good. So this will be the end of Mass Effect. We're gonna move on to the sequel, and what is arguably the best in the trilogy by most people's standards, Mass Effect 2. Again, spoilers for Mass Effect 2. If I wasn't clear about that in the beginning, I'm clear about it again now. A whole 30 minutes later, there will be spoilers. You have been
Yeah.
warned.
Let's look at the track names, and that might spell out a little bit of the things we're talking about.
Yeah. Uh, the first one is one that I listen to on a regular basis still. It is the Normandy Reborn. So we're gonna hit that one. Uh, I can't spell reborn. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
All right.
So again, Jack Wall is the producer of these songs, and he does good with this. So we'll see if it'll let me play. There we go. All right. So there was Mass Effect 2's The Normandy Reborn. Uncle D. Vader, initial thoughts. Here we go.
Uh, this one, so for Mass Effect 2, there was a lot of, again, a lot of people that put their put their time and talent into this. The Normandy Reborn was actually a creation by Jimmy Henson, who's done a number of different things, including, maybe you heard of Call of Duty Black Ops and a couple other of those games where you kind of go, oh, that'll grab your ear. But the one again, going back to the music piece and the fact that they do retain the themes all the way through the game. One of these things is when the brass comes in, the French horns again, they take the theme that you've heard in Mass Effect 1 of a very large crescendo, and they build it in again. This is at the very early stages of the game. And this particular opening game sequence is pretty good for the reasons. But when you build up to, okay, again, here's the mission, here's where you're going, and you know some familiarity, some stuff comes through, but then this theme sort of sets you back up. It's like, okay, you're still Commander Shepard, you've still got things to do, and here's what you're going to do it with, and who, and you know go forth. It's kind of one of those themes where it's meant to be stirring, and hey, things aren't as bad as they seem, so let's go do this again.
Yeah. And adding on to that, you are still Commander Shepard. He dies within the first, like, 5 minutes of the game. You're dead. And then they give, like, another 5 minutes of showing how you're not gonna be dead. Which you'll hear later. They literally bring you back to life. You know, there's some biblical sense. Biblical mean Bible. Bible callbacks to
Yeah,
this.
the titles really are perfect for this game.
They give away all of the all of the story about each song based on what they're about. Kind of. When you get to the ones that are character names, they don't make sense in my opinion, but they still sound great. But like the one like Normandy Reborn, then later the Lazarus Project, then later the Elusive Man. They're both
Yep.
either give away what's happening or catch your eye that you have to at least like look at him like, oh, what is that? And then you give it a listen and it makes sense. You can hear where it is.
Yeah, and like any good movie, game, whatever, whatever you listen to, there's definitely a theme and a build up, and um, using sort of an EDM term, you definitely know when there's a drop, because in this scene you get to see the spectacle of the Normandy, which, as Sapphire said, it gets destroyed. Shepard dies. You're kind of going like, what did I just walk into here? How am I going to come back from this? But the music is part of the story. It helps lead you back to, you're still on the same mission. Actually, it gets explained. It's a little bit different point of view. However, the music themes, the familiarity, some of the familiar faces, I mean, all of that, it gets tied back together. Okay, yeah, you had a setback, boo-hoo. um, Out you go. Let's get you back into this.
Yeah, I think the sum total of the you learn about this later in the games, but I think the sum total for the Normandy and Commander Shepard was about $6 to $8 billion, aka credits. Yeah, it was not cheap to get both Commander Shepard and the Normandy back from essentially the dead. That took a lot of money. It took 4 billion, I think, for Shepard and 2 to 3 billion for the Normandy because they had to buy the schematics or steal them. And to steal them, you have to pay someone really good. And then they had to build it, which costs resources. You know, make it easier to not die when you do whatever you're doing. So, money well spent, but still over
Yep.
budget. Just a bit.
Be the life and times these days. Just another little plug with the kind of communities that these people that created the music work with. this guy Jimmy Henson, he's also known as the Big Giant Circles. He also collaborated with another composer named C418, who created the music for Minecraft and who's done a lot of remixes. So I mean,
Not the Minecraft movie, Minecraft the game, guys. Come on, chat,
yep,
lock in here.
Mine,
Not the
Minecraft the
movie.
game, not the movie. Yep, but these are people who care about their craft, and it really does show. So they're a pleasure to listen to.
It does. It does. So, last points for me at least, it'll be this piece really emphasizes the glorious, a literal reborn of the Normandy and the soft restart of Commander Shepard. Your first mission is technically get back up off the floor because you were just pushed really hard down to the floor and you lost everything.
Yeah, you went down to the floor and 6 feet under.
You went, well, I wouldn't say 6 feet because well, maybe. I think the impact of a human would be more than 6 feet. I think it'd be more like 10 or 12, but who's
You'll
counting?
get it when you get yeah, you'll get it when you get there.
Yeah. When you really want to learn more, there's a ton of YouTube videos explaining this topic. There's the games that explain this topic. The music kind of explains it. And again, the music is what drives it forward. When we're not going to listen to it, but when you see Shepard losing all of his oxygen, he's trying to plug holes in his suit. Doing the Macarena essentially. You kind of see it doing the Macarena. Then he just kind of takes one last deep breath, and then he goes dead. And the music sounds somber and sad. And then
Yeah.
the logo slaps right onto the screen. And then you're like, well, great. Now who am I going to play as?
Yep.
And then that leads into, hopefully, I think I got the order right. Where we're doing the Lazarus Project next.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah,
Well,
it's
not
kind of
order,
in,
but it's fine.
yeah, we're doing the next thing, which is the Lazarus Project. So there you go. You're going to hear exactly what you hear right after he dies. Right after. We're going in reverse order, kind of where they pop up in the game, but this is it's great. So yeah, last thoughts are pretty much over. Now
Yep.
we're just
On to the next.
on to the next. Let's go. Let's grab. I spelled that entirely wrong, but we'll see. Nope. There we go. Ah, there we go. All right. Then they hold out that violin for that amazing introduction. So, bit of backstory on the title. Lazarus in the Bible was this guy who died, and Jesus went to his grave, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's dead. He's He's dead. And Jesus is like, hey, get up. You're not dead. He just got back up. You know.
Yeah, and they sort of allude to that too when you make a few more crew introductions. One of them says, when you came in here, you were, you know, most people would just put you in a box. You were nothing but meat and tubes when I saw you, But he's getting that far. The neat thing about this is again, it's another crescendo build up, and then it's kind of softly moves, and then you'll get right back into the gameplay rather abruptly, I might add. But the
The rude awakening.
yeah, literally, get up, get a gun, get out, or you're gonna die. It's like, oh, okay, well,
Fine.
okay,
I didn't want to be asleep anyway.
yeah, and the ship resources sort of help push this thing along. You're not quite a finished product, but you're pretty close.
I would say
And
he was a
we'll
finished product. I'm just saying,
well,
you get to
you're
customize yourself, but essentially, he
well,
is
yeah, but again,
back.
in the game, depending on good, bad, or neutral options you make, it actually has a physical outcome onto it. You sort of
Yeah, it
you
does.
sort of go through there. But anyway, but more about the music. It is a little bit mystical if you actually take in the whole screen while the process is happening during this clip. Um, the sound plays rather well, but you get the idea that uh, it's really a rebirth. The stuff they put in and go through and all that is it's kind of amazing. That's a deep dive if you go farther into that whole process, but it's fascinating.
Yeah,
Anyway, it's not long, but the crescendo buildups, the arpeggios they go through again. Mass Effect. You hear it from the first one. I can't. I don't have real good, you know, the articulated voice arpeggio, but the chord progression they go up to, and then they kind of double back and go up to another four chord arpeggio
like an
is
octave
something.
almost.
Yeah, it's um, it's in the Normandy Reborn too. The arpeggios, you go through it. It has a very specific build, and it's part of the theme of Mass Effect.
Yeah, and so yeah, like he said, you really have to watch it to like experience what this is about. Again, Lazarus died, and Jesus just said, "You're not dead. Get back up." And that's exactly what happened in this 1 minute and 10 seconds. This woman just basically dedicated 2 years of her life and a bunch of other people, but she's the main important one. She's like, hey, I spent 2 years of my life to put you out of the box. You're 2 years younger than I am now. Congratulations. You know.
When we
I,
get to the next track, you'll get. We'll talk a little bit about like Sapphire said, this is the tracks are very specifically named in here. So when we get to the next one, we'll talk a little bit more about it because it really ties into this.
yeah. And so, you know, her little project. That's what you are essentially. But it tied in perfectly to how it sounded and looked, and again, what Uncle D. Vader said, it really ties into you know the characteristic of Shepard. They do cybernetics, and that left scars on Commander Shepard's face. And depending on your morality in the game, Paragon, aka good guy, you don't really see them. But if you do the renegade or the bad guy, quote unquote, options, you get, your scars glow this orangish yellow almost. Like they're trying to jump out of your scarred face and ripping open that. And that's not actually, but it looks like it. Like it's ripping out and trying to, rip off your face. But no other character really has the same reactivity as the player character, and that's because you're gonna see this character the most has to look the best. But, he has the scars match your morality. The more evil, quote unquote, you are, the more, it shows. You get your eyes start to glow this red and orange. Your scars turn yellow and orange. You just look menacing. But if you remain Paragon, you remain good. It just you look like a normal human with scars on his face. But they're also subtle. They're faded, but they're still there. And that's really it. Again, there's more we could talk about, but that's talking about the game and not so much the music. Um, the music does have a hopeful tone to it, I feel like. It gives hopeful and epic at the same time, more leaning on the hopeful part, but still very much epic.
Yeah, you have the epic beginning of the game, the mournful loss, and then trying to literally inject hope into the storyline at the middle
Triumphant
of it.
return, you know, just triumphant return. Who's back from the dead? I am. Boom, trumpets, French horn, low bass, I think there was even, snare and cymbals, but triumphant trumpets, the happy French horns, the epic trombones, everything just kind of blaring in this triumphant return from this guy who came back from the dead after sur- technically not surviving, but technically surviving. He survived, but he didn't survive. The most impossible survivability. Technically, he didn't survive, but he did because they brought him back. So he did, but he didn't. Oh, yeah. So, yeah. Any more final thoughts you want to add or
No,
emphasize?
this is a middle game, so they do something kind of a little bit different and whatnot. So it's definitely a pivotal part. A lot of choices before and after will come into play as you get through the game. But no, it's a good piece of music for that scene.
Yeah. This is, again, Mass Effect 2. So we are in the second game of a trilogy, which is 3. So we're on game 2 out of 3 right here. And the music is it's less synthetic and more musical. You can actually hear music in less synthetic pieces. So you get more of that movie soundtrack feeling, like you're playing an interactive movie almost. And the music reflects that. So, if you got nothing else, then I think we are ready to move on to the final piece for this, which is
Yep.
the elusive man. We're gonna see the elusive man. So let's get to the oh, come on. Oh, I didn't put a space. There you go. Alright, so this is the elusive man. That was it. That was the elusive man. So, bit backstory for this guy. That's not his name. It's a name that the you learn this from him. Well, not from him, but about him from one of the your squad mates. You you know, it's a nickname that the Alliance, the people you play as in the first game and the third game, uh, it's a nickname they gave him. For being so elusive. Hard to catch, hard to figure out. They barely know about him, let alone what he looks like.
Yeah, and the music plays nicely to that. It's relatively light. There's a few chords, but it doesn't land really hard on any particular theme or anything. It's just and that's the way you interact with him most of the time is very much you meet directly with him, but never physically. He's always a hologram or a voice or something like that away.
It's a
So
video chat.
yeah, it really is, and the music sort of helps maintain that sort of uh, that odd presence. Very well informed, and you're never going to get everything as far as chess pieces on the board, you being one. But he's the chess master for pretty much the next two games. Although it turns in the third one, still very much, mysterious and whatnot. But play through the game, kind of make your own conclusions and figure it out because you're definitely allowed to do so. But the
Yes.
the theme here is very much fitting. You don't spend a lot of time per se, but you definitely get the idea that it's kind of a flitting resource of yours way in the background. When you need something, it sort of magically appears. Hey, I'm alive again. Hey, I got a new ship. You know, so it fits well.
Yeah, he makes sure you get the stuff you need, but he doesn't give you so much that you have an overflow, because then he loses resources and information could be lost, and he wants to keep as much close to the tunic as he can, close to the chest. He loses that edge that he'll give if he gives everything to you, so he only gives what you need. And he's
Yeah,
again, he plays you like a pawn. He doesn't even treat you as a friend. He tries to treat you like a friend, but like not really. He plays you more like a pawn than like say a rook. He just takes advantage of the fact that you have medical debt with him. But
yeah.
being a Canadian citizen, um, your medical debt is free, so boom, no medical debt.
They'll um they'll use the theme a lot. There's cutscenes where the elusive man will talk to Miranda, another character, and they're genuinely interested in making sure that you are you. She'll make some comments about control chips and whatnot, but again, the theme of being elusive is she doesn't agree with the stuff he makes, but he's willing to have some sacrifices made so that you can kind of keep on your marks. He's got an agenda for sure, but you never really know all of that. He just sort of spoon feeds you information when it's convenient. So the theme is good. It's light. It's intriguing. Not heavy. It kind of sits out away and says, you're going to talk with this person again. Here's the feeling you should have.
Yeah, it definitely gives the feeling, again, elusive is, you can't say this enough with the title, but it's the feeling that you get. It's like on edge, but you don't even hear all that song. You only hear a small part of it. But if you hear the whole thing, it mostly plays that kind of electric piano, very unsettling electric piano part. But really, when you hear the violin and stuff, and or maybe it's probably it's either low violin or bass strings, but they all play in this unsettling and cool kind of like crazy way. Was there something you wanted to add?
No, I mean it's a key part for the character development that you're gonna basically you two are gonna circle each other pretty much till the end, to a certain point. But no, no, not really. I mean it's a fitting title for it. Um, yeah.
All right. And final thoughts here are it is a piece, and again, the whole game trilogy is worth experiencing for the music alone and the visuals that they add for the music. But the story, it's again is always dropped as a trilogy kind of theory, but each game was released like 3 years apart, and so they really had time to drop this beautiful soundtrack and the visuals with essentially no hiccups. But if you haven't played it, then this will make no sense to you. But music is great. That's what we're here for. Maybe we'll make a game review about it. Who knows? But small steps. Music first. And again, it's great. Elusive, ominous, unsettling, but also like kind of groovy. So there you go. That's the Elusive Man. And now we're moving on to Mass Effect 3, the one that was thought of to be the worst of the three, but not the worst Mass Effect, just the worst of the trilogy. What was the first one we were doing?
Future for the Krogan.
Future for the Krogan. There you go. Here is a future for the Krogan. There you go. There is a future for the Krogan from Mass Effect 3. Initial thoughts?
The the whole thing that for this whole process, this is a huge thing. It gets explained a lot in Mass Effect, the first one. The second one is it kind of brings a little bit of a theme, but the third one is really there's some very major goals, and this is one of them. There's a lot of character development into this, and when you get to a culminating point, you know, are you going to send some people to their deaths? Have you made enough choices to either keep them alive, or are you okay with it? And that kind of stuff that starts in Mass Effect One too. But this piece of music reminds me of a little bit of some of the Witcher series, the heavy use of the voice as a major instrumental component. Um, it's uh, it's a little bit mournful. It gives you just an inkling of hope, but uh, portraying the weight of the situation where this really takes place, it's pretty good. The counter melodies of the voice with the bass instrument track with the all the stuff that goes through it, it does good at giving emotion to this particular scenes, I guess.
Yeah, and again, spoilers, said that like an hour ago, but we're going to continue saying that. Yeah, the future for the Krogan really defines the future for the Krogan. Krogan are, these dinosaur frog tanks with legs and arms that carry shotguns, and they have short tempers and they can live for centuries. But they got they got into a scuffle because they wanted more power because they were uplifted. And so you learn a lot about this from one of the characters in Mass Effect 2, Mordin Solus. He talks about how he doesn't agree with what he did, but he agreed it was the best option and it had to be done. But in Mass Effect 3, he gets new data that says the Krogan need to come back, and we can't let the Krogan go extinct like what happened with the Rachni. So they're going to cure the genophage to ensure they can reproduce and have, kids. So when
Have their own
Krogan,
future.
yeah, so when they sacrifice their lives, they won't be down to like three. They'll be up eventually, Krogan will sacrifice themselves, and then there will be very little Krogan. So they cure the genophage, which was a cure, or not a cure, but it was a what do you call it? A virus. Not really. A sterility plague, kind of, but that's not what it's called either. But it basically made it so 1 in 1,000 Krogan children are born successfully. So basically, 999 Krogan die in stillbirth. One Krogan is born successfully, and even then, they might die early life before they get, strong and
Yeah,
tough.
they advocate well, but the history that they start to set again, Mass Effect, all three of them, the Codex is pretty good size. So getting all the history of how they came here is something. If you're a serious game player, more than just like the first person shooter aspect of it, uh, the history is worth the time. Um, and again, having a story that builds credence into what they're trying to do in the game, and having a good soundtrack with it. That's where this one is good. It reminds me of it's like early TV, almost like some of the very early X Files kind of stuff. It's just a
Yeah,
composer. They're at their keyboard, but they're trying to put some more. It's like, well, let's add a little voice, and we don't have to be fancy, but if it fits the scene, then hey, we've increased the viewer's pleasure. So that's kind of what I think this one is. It's not complicated, but it definitely fits with the story.
It does, and it adds also again to that, hopeful when this piece plays um, in the mission priority to Chanka, which is the homeworld of the Krogan, and the Krogan are, you know, they're angry. They're like, oh, what's this guy doing here? It's like, I'm here to cure your planet and you guys, and you know, you're gonna give off offspring and be, you know, a great help again to everybody. And then one of the Krogan gives a speech about how they don't want to be in the books of history as an extinct species. They would fight for their freedom, for their future. And this emphasizes that with her speech. I choose to fight. Will you join me? And everyone starts to agree, yeah, let's fight for our freedom. They don't really care about everyone else. They just want their freedom. Again, they have kind of tiny brains because they're brutes with shotguns. I don't know. They,
Yeah, and the theme they make, we'll kind of get there in another track here soon, but the this is a huge theme in Mass Effect 3 is, survival of a species, however you define the word species, because it definitely comes into play a couple more times where you're gonna your decision possibly could be a heavy-handed, plus or minus to whichever group you're working with to try to achieve your goals. So yeah, it's a good example. But so are the next couple.
yeah. And most of Mass Effect 3's soundtrack as a whole is about sacrifice and mournfulness. There's a little bit of heroicness, like A Future for the Krogan, but mostly it is one of sadness and sacrifice. They're in their fight now against the Reaper threat. The threat has finally come, and everybody is not prepared. Most prepared, probably the humans, but not even they are prepared. They get curb stomped immediately. Vancouver overrun again. Also, that's kind of what happens when they run all of Earth, but free healthcare. But yeah, they Earth gets curb stomped, and what people are there are fluttering a resistance to survive and hold off, while you, the player, go across the galaxy recruiting every species, helping them with their problem so they can help you with your problem, which is reclaiming Earth from these giant mechanical cuttlefish, basically. Squids, almost. It's Helldivers, you know? But you're facing giant robots instead of bugs and squids. Just robots. Anyway, so with that, future for the Krogan. It's very hopeful, very epic, and it offers the final hurrah and huzzah for pushing to give them the cure they desired for the last ever, you know. Any final thoughts?
No, this is one that you know when you've made it this far in the games, you know what it's about, and
Yeah.
you can feel the effect of it. So
Again, the games do it more justice, but auditory is what we do for now. Don't want to cover it. So, what's the next piece we're doing here?
I'm proud of you.
I'm
This one's
proud of
another.
you.
It's a very specific point in the game. It's a good piece.
There you go. So this is I'm proud of you. and then from there it can repeat or it fades away like it just did. But you hear that it kind of had that little hopeful piano, and then it just kind of cut itself off. That's because it's a repeat, but the song ends because it's not in the game, it's a soundtrack. So it's got to end at some point, so that's where it ends. But in the game, it would generally repeat. Anyway, just want to clarify that. I did not put it off, it just didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, initial
Well, it depends on
thoughts?
how long ever it takes you to get through the dialogue, but the scene is good. This is
Yeah,
one of the moments where you get to see a little bit of the squishy inside of your playable character. You know when you have to deal with this, and um, there's a few of these ish type of moments where you get the opportunity to give a little back to the characters that you've picked up along the way. So it's a good moment. It definitely has its own unique theme for for this part. I like it. It's real soft. There's no real throwback to There's no heroic brass. There's just enough to where you pick up the emotion of the moment. It's you know kind of a pause on that whole thing, and you get to see Shepard actually be a little bit humble. It's good. I like it.
both of you are sitting down and bleeding out together, but you're together. You're with your mentor, Captain Anderson, or Admiral Anderson now, but everyone knows him as Captain Anderson. But yeah, he. This is him. Basically, you are his son. Essentially, it's like, man, you did good. You did the impossible. I'm proud of you. That's essentially what it is. The title again gives it away. Like Mass Effect 2, their titles give them away, but you don't know how it's going to give it away. You just know it will. And then you listen to it, and if you combine it with the visuals, it really does make you, again, feel like you've grown attached to this guy for 3 games, and him
Yeah,
finally dying makes you actually hurt. Like you will shed a tear playing this for the first time and seeing this. I still shed tears when he is bites the dust. I still cry at this. You know,
and even when you first hit the start button and you kind of go through your character selection. I mean everything. Once you finish that and start, you sort of get a feeling of um, of the weight and gravity because there's three main like forces on the sort of alliance good guys side, if you will, and he's one of them. You're not wrong in that this has been a building relationship for a long time. You really have been. He's expecting the best of you because he knows it's possible through you. So, yeah, good piece.
it is. And that's really all we can really say about it. It's short, sweet, a nice send off for this character. It's just it's sad, man. Why do you know? It's sad, but it's a nice sad. It makes the player feel very emotional, and that's what they wanted. They were going for emotional, and gosh darn it, they hit emotional. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. That's it's. I'm proud of you. It's short,
It's worth the
sweet.
moment.
Yes, worth the moment.
Play the game. It's worth the moment.
Again, get Legendary Edition. There's a lot of quality of life fixes, and everything just looks better. And it's not Starfield or Andromeda, so it's better than that already. The bar was set pretty low recently, so there you go. Now I believe the last piece was Rannoch, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, Rannoch.
Rannoch. This is the Quarian homeworld of Mass Effect in the Perseus Vale. then it fades away to either repeat or, you know, end. So there you go. That is Rannoch. Not as touching or sentimental, but it is the retaking of an entire planet. It is what you're doing to Earth for another species. They, a close friend of yours, essentially. And
Yeah,
it's really two species technically clashing. Um, the Geth are the ones that have Rannoch. They were the workforce for the Quarians, and the Quarians kept making them smarter to do more complex tasks, and eventually they got so smart they decided they didn't want to be treated like garbage and started revolting, leaving only 1% of the Quarians alive. So eventually they
yeah,
muster up a fleet 200 or 300 something years later and come back. But obviously, you hear like the synthetic part, and it really ties into you're fighting synthetics, you're not fighting organic. So there's not so much organic pieces, there's a lot of synthetic parts to it.
yeah. But sentient nonetheless. Self-aware.
Yes,
Um, Another thing about being on, not necessarily, but when the live reaper shows up too, you're like, oh my, okay.
that's
Um,
not a that's not a Reaper base. That's a
no,
Reaper.
yeah, that's a reaper. Um, it's 300 years in the making. It seems like a historical footnote, but again, this the Geth have had Rannoch for 300 years, and the Quarians are just kind of floating with a group of spaceships out in space, sort of holding their own species together. Um,
With like
so this
tape.
the the struggle very much is one of those things again where you do this a couple different times for a few different species. It's like, look, you had an opportunity to sort of end a whole bunch of stuff, and as it turns out in three, you're like, maybe I shouldn't have made that choice at that point of a previous game. So this uh this game is where some of your choices can come back to haunt you. um I know there's several playthroughs where you kind of go, did I really do that right? Because some of it's a little bit of emotion. You only have the history that they give you in the codec, but once you play all three through, it's like I need to go back and make some different choices. And Rannoch is one of those places where the rubber meets the road, where yeah, there's two species again, if however you define it, if you will, that are they want the place, but you have an opportunity to do like the ultimate good or the ultimate bad, depending on how you see it. So anyway, I like the piece. It's good. It gives gravitas to the situation that you're in.
Yeah. They the piece with its synthetic beating, like almost like a heartbeat, like a fast heartbeat. Like after you've done a mile run, your heart will beat fast. Dun 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 dun. That synthetic part in the background with the organic sounding instruments of the trumpets and trombone, the loud cymbals and snares really give the feeling of you're in the middle of a war zone trying to clean up another species mess because they called for you because you couldn't handle it. And now you've got to clean up their mess and try and make that triangle of peace of you being the center point and the other two connecting to get along. You've got to be the middleman because no one else is going to be it.
Yeah, and the tempo of the music, a few different times. There's times when a timer will appear in the game, but a lot of other times, the story won't progress unless you actually go do something. So there are moments when you can kind of stop, and as long as you're not going to die, then you can sort of pause the action and just kind of go, wow, what a scene! They've built it in the first Mass Effect when you're trying to get up to the tower to get to where your final objective is. You can kind of stop and look around. There's the bad guys stop coming for a while, but then you have an opportunity to actually look out around the citadel, and you kind of go, this is sort of a big place. I know I need to get down this way and do this one thing, but this is pretty epic. So take advantage of those moments. It One of them is in Mass Effect 2 again, where the music is really good, and that's when you're transitioning from the back of the Normandy to the front to go get your Joker, your pilot, and you'll walk out of a force field and you can look around. The Normandy's pretty much half destroyed. It's going to fail, but things are just
Mm.
floating there, and you can look around. And the music is very, it's still pulsating in the background, like there's a sense of urgency. But really, you could leave a pause there for
However
until the
long
thing
you want.
burns out,
Yep.
however long you want, and take it in. So it plays very well. This is one of those opportunities when you get to a point you can kind of look around and go, I am in an absolute field of chaos,
Yeah.
but
The
hey, the music's good.
roof was pulled open, and you're just looking out to Alchira, and it's like, oh wow, I'm close to death here. If my helmet broke, I'd be dead. But
Yeah,
yeah, going back to Rannoch, and it really does show how music can put together a game. Um, it doesn't really go like the whole piece. It separates into different pieces as you're on Rannoch itself. But the piece Rannoch is really different pieces all put together. When you hear the triumphant dun 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 dun, the very triumphant trumpets, it it plays in actually a pretty sad part where one of your squad mates who has been your squad mate since Mass Effect 1 and 2, she sees her people falling from the sky, her what's left of their fleet entering orbit and crashing into the Rannoch because you chose to side with the Geth and not the Quarians. And she just takes off her helmet, looks at the mess because she can't breathe in the air, she'll get sick. But she takes off her helmet and she just looks at the mess. She turns around and just says, I'm sorry, and then falls off a cliff. And even if you try and catch her, you won't. And you can just feel how Commander Shepard feels also in that moment. Like, I've resolved the conflict, I've made peace on Rannoch, but at what cost? And
yep,
it just makes you feel like you messed up.
yep. The weight of your decisions definitely falls heavy in this game. You get to feel them all.
And if you make peace between both sides, it still feels like this almost shouldn't have happened, but it did, and there's nothing you can do about it. But at least it's resolved, and in the end, both sides are still alive, and they both agree that they need to help each other and stop fighting each other. But until you step in, it was one or the other, and now there is a world where there would be both.
Yep.
So this piece really just talks about, well, talks about, quote unquote, I'm going to say talks about, it really talks about the urgency of this mission, but also the heavy conflict that if you fail, someone's entire species will die. Or it can talk about how a species almost became extinct. Again, similar to the Krogan, they could have died. You could have killed them, but you chose to give them the cure. You chose to make them survive. You chose to give them a purpose, to see tomorrow, to fight for their future. The Quarians are doing the same thing, but because of their arrogance, they paid for it, and now they're trying to collect on their payment. They're trying to restart what they lost 300 years ago. So, any more final thoughts you want to add in?
Not for this piece necessarily. Sort of a plug for There's a number of DLCs, some of which you get in the Legendary Edition, but one in particular is the Lair of the Shadow Broker that heavy contributor Christopher Lenitz did. There's some great themes in there um, in DLCs. The kind of sub game, extra, if you will. That's a good one. And so is what is the one? The asteroid
Bring down the sky.
Bring Down the Sky. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there too. I mean, there's a lot of unique stuff that they've created to make sure the genre survived. I mean, there's probably been what, like 8 to 10 people that have made the music throughout the series and all the DLCs, but they put a lot of time into it. A lot of them have worked with BioWare for a long time. So um, there's a couple good things from YouTube from the creators. You can start sort of with Jack Wall and move your way through it, and their take on it is very interesting too. Giving homage to the people that actually took the time to create the stuff. They got hired to do it, and the thought process they go through. Because sometimes it's not easy. They get sneak peeks of the games and to do things, and same with any other creator. Here's parts of the movie, here's parts of the game, here's parts of
Whatever.
whatever,
Yeah.
and you know I think I like some of your stuff before, and this, that, or the other thing, try to create something here. A lot of good stuff. There's no small amount of games that we have the ability to basically go through. So this is the tip of the iceberg. We'll do more.
Yeah. They did good with the music, and again, it just shows in the soundtrack how music is one small part of a game, but it's an important part. Without music, everything's quiet, you know. If you ever tried to play a game without headphones on, no sound, it just nothing. But when you have at least headphones on, you can hear sound effects. Even without music, sound effects make a game better. With music, you add to those sound effects, which create ambience and or ambiance, however you want to say it. Makes the whole game itself sound and feel like you're there. You're not playing it. You are in there, you know. But it just makes you know, wow, this is incredible, you know.
Everyone's situation is different, but if you have the ability to use headphones or something that can reproduce the sound decently, it's worth the hassle, the extra cord, the time to take in music on stuff uh, that someone spent a lot of time. It is an important key component. So try to do them the same and listen to it on something where you get the full effect.
Yeah. Even having a like your cell phone speaker, it still picks up all of those little cues, but headphones really add to that. But again, a speaker will do just fine. But if you have headphones and you have the visual cues, you can really see why the music works and where it works. Rannoch may not be the best example, but it has a lot of pieces that actually do work. And again, it's Rannoch is a bunch of small parts of the mission pushed into one soundtrack so that we can listen to it right now. But realistically, it's a bunch of different pieces shoved into one so we can understand it and not spend 30 minutes alone on it. So there you go. That was Rannoch, and that's pretty much where we're gonna end it here. There's any more final thoughts on anything, feel free to speak now and we can talk more.
There is no small amount of good music, not just game music. So we'll start peeling this particular part of the onion. Um, there's almost too much to take in an entire lifetime, but be mindful. take it in. Everyone's got a piece they find that they like. So it's one of those great, at least in my life, one of those great things where it helps solve some of the questions, and answers things that maybe you didn't know you had a question for even. So enjoy the music. Take the time.
Yeah. And again, if you haven't played this game, get the Legendary Edition. You'll thank both of us later. Um, yeah, that's pretty much that. If you want this game, get the Legendary Edition. If you have money to splurge, get all of them plus all the DLCs because yeah, they're all great, but Legendary Edition gives you most, if not all, of the DLCs except for a couple, and it gives you again that same feeling throughout. It's a consistent feeling. It doesn't look different. It just part one, part two, part three instead of game one, game two, game three. It's one game with three parts. And so, pretty much on that happy note, we'll be that'll be the end of this. I've been Sapphire, your host, and this is
Uncle D Vader.
yep, he is Uncle D Vader, my co-host, and our next episode hopefully will be out next month on the second Sunday is when we're recording this on. There you go. Your time is uh, the October 12th right now. Doing it every second Sunday of every month. So who knows what we'll tackle next? Feel free to throw suggestions in the down comment section. And in the description will be a YouTube link for each individual song and the creators. Do go and all these are, you know, owned by BioWare and all the people who made them. They all deserve the credit. We're just talking about their great music. But this is great music to start on. If you really like a game, highly suggest this one. With that, that's pretty much it. Any other closing thoughts?
Nope. Be kind to one another. Enjoy the music.
All right. Well, with that, we'll see you guys in our next podcast. Have a great day, rest of your day, evening, morning, wherever you are. Have a great one. And we'll see you in our next podcast.